Hi guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be my April TBR. Now for the month of April, I'm honestly a little perplexed on what it is exactly I feel like reading. I have a few books on here that is from my spring TBR and I have a general, a rough draft idea of what I want to read. I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling this month. In fact, right now as this video is live, I'm actually traveling in South Korea and I'm in South Korea until the middle of the month. So I'm just not totally sure what I'll feel like reading on the plane and while I'm out and about. You get the idea. Quick plug, if you guys want to follow my trip real time, I am posting on TikTok and Instagram, but I am also vlogging and we'll have a vlog on this channel eventually. But that being said, I am really excited about all the books I hope to read for the month. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. The first book that is on my TBR is the Siren Queen by Nevo. I read The Beautiful Ones by this author last year and really enjoyed her writing. I'm not a huge Great Gatsby fan, but I knew just based on her writing style, I was definitely going to be checking out other books by her. This is her newer release, and honestly, it sounds so interesting. This story is set in kind of an old Hollywood era, and it says where immortality is just a casting call away. This has to do with all the complexities and the problematic nature of old Hollywood, but I also believe Nevo kind of mixes in magic as well. And in this book, we follow our main character, Luli Wei, who is a beautiful and very talented actress, and she knows the dangers and the complexities of trying to make it big and pre-code Hollywood. She also knows that there's not very many opportunities or roles designed for someone who looks like her. And then from there it goes on to say that bargains and rituals are made for actresses to make it big, and the blood and the sacrifice of Scarlets who never make it is what fuels this Hollywood apparatus. I just feel like this book is going to be dark and strange and full of impeccable writing, and I really appreciate how Nevo kind of injects some dark fantastical elements to historical settings, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Next up, I have Age of Legend by Michael J. Sullivan. I have to continue on with the Legends of the First Empire series because I am truly obsessed and I do not want to let too much time pass since completing the third book, which I believe I read in February. I started this series late last year and have just completely fallen in love. It has skyrocketed as one of my new favorite series out there. And the interesting thing structurally about the Legends of the First Empire is kind of structurally designed to be two trilogies within the same world. So I've already sort of experienced the first act, if you will, and I loved the third and final book. So I'm looking forward to see how the story is going to continue and perhaps evolve within this fourth installment. If you're not familiar, this is a fantasy world kind of set in an ancient landscape. In it, we're introduced to humans who sort of live initially in kind of these small sort of towns and villages. They farm and they're just kind of focused on surviving. There's also these elven-like characters that the humans worship as gods, but at the beginning of book one, a human actually kills one of these elves and things begin to spiral out of control. This book series has incredible characters. It also really toys on the idea of civilization building and the growth of human society, which I thought was fascinating. I love the twists and turns of the plot. Again, the third book had some of the best military writing I've read in a long time. So I'm curious about this one. The cover really calls out to me. I love all the green. I also really appreciated how pastoral the first ones felt. So I feel like that sort of vibe is definitely going to continue just based on the aesthetics of this cover. Next, I feel like I am finally ready and prepared to read Cersei by Madeline Miller. I read The Song of Achilles, goodness, it's probably 2 years ago now and really enjoyed it. Obviously, Madeline Miller is very famous and her fictionalized sort of retellings of these classic and famous Greek tales are also very beloved. I loved her stylization and just, again, the humanization of Achilles and Patroclus in The Song of Achilles. So I'm really looking forward to picking up this other novel by her, which is, again, also incredibly popular. In this story, we're back in the tale of the Odyssey, but now we're actually following the sorceress Cersei. We know Cersei as a witch who was banished to an island to live alone, and while living on this island, she comes across some of the most famous figures in mythology. It also says in this story she comes across a very powerful Olympian, and it kind of is up to her to decide if she wants to continue to live alongside the gods or perhaps take a new path. This is said to be full of family rivalry, palace intrigue, love, loss, and the indomitable force of a woman standing strong in a world made for men. I'm really curious about this. Again, it's a really loved story. I'm also just in general a huge fan of any type of mythology retelling, so I really feel like I'm going to love this book. Next book I want to get to is another sequel I've put off for way too long, and that is Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse. Series series is a multi-POV tale set kind of in and around the ancient city of Tova. In the first one, we're introduced to a slew of characters, from a ship captain to a religious refugee being transported across the ocean, to a powerful political figure that's kind of stuck between politics. The entire story takes place as the upcoming eclipse is a very significant religious moment, and there's just a lot of tension and intrigue kind of happening throughout the course of the first one. It was an absolute page turner. I loved all the characters. I love the sort of intersecting of fates and plotline, and just Rebecca Roanhorse's writing is always so immersive. So obviously I'm really looking forward to checking out Fevered Star, and I'm hoping to love it just as much as the first one. And this is also a fantasy series inspired by pre-Columbian history. The next book I want to read just feels so springtime that I want to read it before the season changes, and that is Dreamer's Pool by Juliette Marillier. I've obviously talked a lot about the Seven Waters series by Juliette Marillier. I adore the first two books that I've read within that series, but I'm also really looking forward to checking out other works by this author. I'm just so drawn in by her writing style, inclusion of mythology, her celebration of nature, just everything about her books just makes me want to live inside of them. And this is a Blackthorn and Grimm novel. In the story, we follow our main character Blackthorn, who at the beginning of this book has just escaped her very long and very wrongful imprisonment. Also, in agreement to be able to receive help to escape her imprisonment, she basically has to set aside her desire for revenge and also set up shop on the edge of a forest and help anyone who kind of comes her way. Enter in a crown prince who's looking for advice and help for an arranged political marriage. I just already know I'm going to love this book. I'm really hoping it's dreamlike and has some elements of romance, but political intrigue. I just feel like Juliette Marillier balances everything so well, and I can't wait. The next book I have to read is my IRL book club pick, and our meeting is in early May, so I just want to make sure to get to it, obviously, before that meeting. And the book itself, I'm so looking forward to, and that is Bearden Woods by Eleanor Canton. This is Eleanor Canton's newest release, and the concept and synopsis of this sounds strange in the best way possible. A lot of people describe this as literary fiction meets thriller, and if there's one thing I'm just so into right now, it's basically any genre with a thriller addition to it. I don't necessarily want to read just thrillers, but historical fiction, thriller, fantasy, thriller, literary fiction, thriller. I'm there. And the synopsis of this book goes, Bearden Woods is on the move. After a landslide cuts off a small town in the southern part of New Zealand, a sizable piece of land is now unreachable and cut off from civilization. Bearden Woods is like a guerrilla, sometimes criminal, sometimes philanthropic, farmers group. They basically find land that's uninhabited, unused, and they plant crops. At the beginning of this book, they're kind of struggling because they haven't been profitable for a long time, but this new piece of land really provides an opportunity. However, though, there's also this very strange billionaire from America who also has eyes on this piece of land to build his end of the world shelter doomsday locale. Even more strange, though, as these two groups begin to interact, particularly the leader of Bearden Woods and the billionaire begin to form some type of relationship. This just sounds incredibly strange in a book that could also be very, very intense. I love the idea of a very isolated location and just people with very strong passions and personalities possibly having a survivorist moment. I don't know. I'm curious to see how this is going to play out. I've already heard fantastic things from reviewers who have read it, and I'm also looking forward to discussing it at book club. Speaking of book club, the other book I hope to get to this month is another book club read, but this time for the Cozy Club podcast. That is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Falquette. This book just sounds delightful and cozy and endearing in all of the best ways, and follows our main character, Emily Wilde. And she is the foremost expert on Fae and the history of Fae and the magic surrounding Fae. And she is really excited because she feels like she has found a brand new location that could possibly unlock some very important secrets. So at the beginning of this book, she's moved into this very small village, but Emily Wilde's also a little awkward and she has a harder time kind of integrating herself in new communities, which is especially annoying when her very handsome, very charismatic co-worker shows up and immediately begins to charm the town. They also begin to sort of work together, and possibly Emily begins to realize that he might have a lot of secrets himself. This just sounds romantic, cute, rom-com. I love a romance with a dash of fantasy moment, and I really feel like this is going to deliver in that department. I can't wait to discuss it with Monica on our podcast as well. Must read for the next month or so, and that is Fools Assassin by Robin Hobb. I am so unbelievably sad that I am finally kind of completing my Robin Hobb journey with starting this final trilogy, and I think that's why I've been putting off starting this book. I know I'm gonna love it. I know it's going to make my top books of the year, but I'm not quite ready for this series to be over, if you know what I mean. That being said, I need to start. If I want to finish the entire trilogy before the end of 2023, this has got to happen. And we're back with Fitz and the Fool. I believe they're going on another quest based off of the political realities of the last trilogy featuring them and some of the stuff that happened in the Rain Wild Chronicles. Obviously, this is very difficult to talk about, but if you love amazing character work, agonizing character arcs, fantastic plot, really methodical world building, and just an entrancing world and experience to be in, The Fool, which is one of the main characters of the series, is just one of the most interesting characters ever crafted by anyone ever. And I stand by that statement. So yeah, I need to start this. I'm not sure if I'm going to finish this month, but I'm definitely going to start it. Next book that is on my TBR is the second book to the Murderbot series. I feel like this is a perfect book to bring along to Korea. I can have it on my e-reader. It'll be easy. I fell in love with Murderbot reading All Systems Red. They're funny, they're endearing, they're smart, and I just really appreciated their like desire to really just be an introvert and watch their shows, but instead kind of being pulled into drama of the corporate dystopian world that they live in. It's just such a fascinating concept. If you're not familiar, the Murderbot series is set in kind of a dystopian near future society where this thing called the corporation sort of controls everything. And the corporation also greenlights various expeditions where people go out and like mine for resources. Also send along AI robots for protection for anyone who's doing these exploration missions. Enter Murderbot, who is a robot who's kind of hacked into their own systems, and they now have their own concept of like being alive, their own ideas, and they're kind of processing their own existence while also trying to like pretend that they're still just a regular robot, help their humans survive, and the whole thing. The first one was really, really short, just sort of introducing us to Murderbot and the world. So I'm really curious to see how this is going to continue to develop. I really enjoyed the writing and the voice of the whole thing. It was such a great experience. So I want to continue on again with book 2. And then the last book that's on my TBR is Clara and the Sun by Kazu Ishiguro, which I'm looking forward to read for so many reasons. I read Never Let Me Go again a couple years ago, and I've heard that this is like not necessarily a direct sequel, perhaps somehow like connected to that story. This is another book kind of toying with the concepts of existence, what it means to be alive, and in particular, we follow what I believe is like an AI robot who lives and a store, and they watch sort of existence play out right outside their window, and they wait for the day to be selected. The synopsis is very vague and very, very strange. And I love weird speculative fiction books, especially ones that again touch on these topics. So I have a feeling I'm going to really, really like it. I felt like I meant to read this book right away when I bought it so many years ago. Here we are, have not, but hopefully this month.